All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of our live streams. Unless you're watching this after it was live, and then hey, welcome to the replay of this lesson. So in this one, we're going to dive into the same topic as we did in the previous video, which is some performance enhancements. To give you an overview of what we did previously, this application is a courseware type application, which is one that is used to essentially to help teachers to publish courses, as well as students to log in and take those courses and consume the content. So this was an application, it's called Professo. It's an application I built myself from scratch using the Java language. And it's been a while since I've worked on this particular application because I've been crazy busy. So there are some performance enhancements that I needed to work on just to help out a little bit. So yesterday, or rather in the previous video, the main page, which is what you're looking at here, which I call like the marketplace, which is where you can check out all the different courses. When you first loaded this page, like if you hit refresh, it was taking a long time to load. It was taking like 7 to 10 seconds to load this page, which in the real world, 7 to 10 seconds is just too long. People get tired and they leave. So we fixed that up. Now it's almost immediate. Now, there were still some issues that we ran into, and that was namely for courses, or offers rather. This is an example of an offer, this Coders Campus offer. This offer had a really long load time as well. So if I click on this, so it's like 1, 2, or yeah, did I click on it? No. Try clicking again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 seconds to load that page. That is just unacceptable, right? So yeah, the point of this video is let's look into this. Let's look into this particular page because it took 12 seconds to load this page. That is way too long. People are way too impatient to wait 12 seconds for a page to load in the real world. So let's fix the underlying performance issues. So if we flip over to our console here inside of our code, hopefully this text is nice and big so that you guys can actually see it. So let's take a look at the code, right? Let me clear my console here. I'm using the Spring Tool Suite IDE. Some people prefer the IDE, what's it called? The IntelliJ IDE, which is cool too. I've heard you can use a community edition, and that one's just fine. But yeah, this is the Spring Tool Suite is what I'm using, which is kind of like Eclipse. So when I go and refresh this page, what you'll see here is in the console, if I maximize it, just a plethora of select statements that are happening here, which leads to, and which is the root cause of the 12-second wait time. It has to do a whole bunch of queries, and that is not ideal. So in yesterday's video, I explained why this happened. Again, I say yesterday because I did record one yesterday. In the previous video, I explained the root cause of this. I'll go over that again just real quick. So the root cause of that thing, of all these select statements, are essentially caused by something called eager fetching, or lazy loading that we did not do properly. So essentially, when I try to load up a Java object that has a lot of relationships, in other words, an entity object, which is essentially just an entity object, is a representation of a database table. Please save this live video. Yeah, this live video will be saved, so you will be able to watch this later. So an entity represents a database table. And if you're familiar with relational databases, there are relationships between tables, hence relational database. And for every table relationship, there's a potential for having to load more stuff, which can bog down a system. So for example, what we are running into is the concept of an offer. Okay, so if we go to the front page here, these are all offers. The offer represents a course or courses that have a price and some other things. But namely, here's an offer that has a bunch of courses inside of it. So the Coders Campus offer has like 18 courses inside of it. So it's a one-to-many relationship. One offer has many courses. That's an example of a relationship. So when we click on this offer, it needs to load not only the offer, but then it goes and loads all the 18 courses. And then the 18 courses, each of those courses have their own ratings and reviews that people have left. As you can see, it's 98 ratings and reviews. So then it has to then also, for every course, load the ratings and reviews. So it's this cascading loading that goes along with it, and each rating and review has a user that left it, so it needs to load the user. So what happens is you get this crazy overflow of select statements, and it's just not it's not efficient. So what we need to do here is we need to isolate, where is this all going wrong? Where is it doing this inefficient loading of these additional relationships, and how can we solve it, right? So let's first dive into, if I didn't know anything about this application, and if I was coming in blind like most of you are, how do you debug this? How do you go about actually figuring out where this is all going wrong? Well, typically in a web application, the first place I look is the URL. So what is the URL? What hints does the URL give to me? Unfortunately, knowing what I know and knowing that I built this application myself, this URL is actually dynamic, so that actually doesn't really help. So unfortunately, if you were brand new, it would take you probably a little while to understand that this is a dynamic URL. In other words, this name, Coders Campus here, can change. Like if we go back to the home page and then click on Databases course, it'll say, Databases and SQL course. So this is a variable path here. So we'd have to look for some sort of a path that represents this particular URL. So unfortunately, it's not as easy as just saying, go in and look for, a path that starts or that has the word databases and SQL in it. So, whoops, that's too bad. But what I can point you to is typically there is some sort of a web package in the world of Java. If you're watching this on a mobile phone, it's going to be hard to read the text on the left, but I'll just tell you what I see. So there's a package called web here, .web. It might also be called .controller. So this is where your controllers live. Controllers are what listen for the requests that come from a browser. Okay, so up here, whoops, in the browser, when we hit enter, like that, it's sending a request. That's called an HTTP request. So controllers listen for that request, intercept it, and say, oh, this sounds like a one specific type of request that I've been mapped to point to a method to execute. So for this particular endpoint, this particular URL, it will point me to a method to execute. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a controller that points us to a particular Java method that has code inside of it. So here's where all the controllers live. I didn't do a very good job in organizing this. I just put all the controllers in one place, in one package. Normally you might break this up a little bit because this is a fair number of controllers. There's, 20 controllers here. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think my best guess is offer controller. That's what I'm going to hope for. No, because this one, I think I did this last time. I looked at offer controller as to where these courses might lie. But this one has to have this prepended. So at the class level, we have something called a request mapping annotation with a value of /teachers/offers, which means that it has to have the word /teachers/offers in the URL in order to go here and do anything in this sort of code. So we do not have /teachers/offers, right? It's just the name of a course. So maybe the course controller. Let's go to the course controller right here. So there's the request mapping here that, well, first you look at the root level. The root level has no request mapping, so that's fine. Just means there's nothing that gets prepended. So let's keep going. There's one with this Google thing. That's not what I want. There's just the root path. This is what we were looking at yesterday. But we don't want just a plain root. We want / and then some sort of a variable for the offer name. Let's keep scrolling down. Nothing there. Okay, request mapping page name.html. Okay, that's closer, but we don't have .html at the end of our page name, so that's not right. Price, no. Ooh, what's this? Offer URL. So this sounds a lot like what I'm doing here. I'm clicking on an offer and viewing an offer. And the offer name here in the databases and SQL course this one is variable. So this sounds like the right place to go. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in here. Okay, I'm inside of the scope of the method that is tied to this request mapping attribute. Again, this is a controller that's listening for a particular URL value. Nice to see you again, Big Leo. So yeah, we put a debug point in there. Now, for those of you who are eagle eyes, you might see that there's just a blue dot in here, but there's no check mark in the blue dot. Again, if you're on a mobile phone, there's no chance that you can see what I'm talking about, so I'm going to explain it through audio. There's just a blue dot with no check mark. That means that we are either not in debug mode, or there's something wrong and it's not figuring out that our breakpoint is tied properly to the IDE. Something's wrong. So I believe what's wrong is I need to stop my server and start it in debug mode, which is this little bug picture here. I go to Professor Core and run it in debug mode. So I believe I just wasn't running in debug mode, so now let me restart my server. Get a drink of water. And hopefully this blue dot will turn into a checkbox or check mark. There you go. There's a tiny little blue check mark that appeared. I can see it. Again, if you're on a mobile phone, sorry, there's no chance you can see that. But that tells me that because there's a check mark, it is working. So we have a breakpoint, a debug point set, but now we need to see if it actually works. We need to see if our code pauses when we visit a particular URL, right? So we'll reload the front page. Oh, it hit a breakpoint. So that's a different breakpoint. That was one left over from yesterday. That's the root path it went into. So let me remove that, and I probably need to remove other ones. Let me click play in the top left here. It's probably going to hit another breakpoint. Yes, let me get rid of this one and say play. To get rid of the breakpoint, you just double click on it again. Okay, so that brings up the home page again. So now let me click on this Coders Campus offer. Boom. Yes, this video will be saved. Don't worry. I'm not going to delete it. It will be rewatchable later. So yes, there you go. It did hit the breakpoint that I just put in with you guys. So the offer URL request mapping goes into the show offer. This is the name that I chose for this method. This could be any name, but I called it show offer because I guess that's fairly descriptive. So yeah, we hit our breakpoint. Fantastic. So now let me clear my console and let me see where the hiccup is happening. Where are we hitting the point where it is spitting out a bunch of select statements? Because that's what's slowing down this page from loading. So I'm going to hit F6, which is the step over functionality. Again, this differs from IDE to IDE, but I'm using Spring, which is Eclipse, which they both use the same shortcuts. So F6 will step over, so let's step over. And this I see, whenever I see repo here, which stands for repository, this means we're going to do a select statement. So we'll see what this does in terms of how many select statements this spits out. Let's hit F6. Boom. So just one select statement appeared in our console. Perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable. That's not a big deal. Keep going. So next, offer.get payment processor. So let's see. Nothing happened in our console. Now let's go and do this guy. Let's step through. Okay, that had one select statement. Again, not a bad thing. One extra select statement, not the end of the world. Let's go to the next one. No extra select statements, so we're still good. Let's keep going. I'm looking for a whole bunch of select statements spilling over into our console. Let me make the console a bit bigger. Let's go in and see if we hit any. My guess is the reviews is where the problem is. And this is what I identified yesterday as the problem. So, and I have a better solution from yesterday's video. So let me hit F6, and there you go. You see a bunch of select statements are pouring out in our console. And I'm hoping that this is the majority of the problem right here, because then this won't be too long of a video. Yeah, this is bad, ladies and gentlemen. When you see this, that's a huge red flag right there that you just saw. Whole bunch. How many select statements? I don't even know how many lines of code or lines of Hibernate outputs of all the select statements. Very, very poor in terms of performance when you see that happening. So let me talk about, because I already have an idea of how to solve this. Let me talk about why this is happening. There's a root cause. Let me hit the play button to let this play through and do the rest of it, what it needs to do. The root cause is you need to traverse the hierarchy of relationships here. In other words, start with the offer and start digging into the different relationships. Remember, I talked about relationships. Let me go back here and hit the front page again. For those of you, I see that few more people have joined the stream, so I'll sort of reiterate what I've been talking about. So there's a performance issue here that comes from us having to do a lot of select statements. And how I've debugged this, first I put a breakpoint and figured out where in our code are we hitting the part that where the issue is occurring. So finding the controller, the endpoint, the URL, where this is happening, and then stepping through the code line by line to see where we get all these select statements that are coming out that's causing the performance issue. Now that I've identified it, I want to talk about, which is this code right here, I want to talk about how to dig into this specific code and find out what's going wrong. So we start with the offer. When we click on an offer, in my code, an offer means something. It means right here, it's the cost of a course or a set of courses is an offer. So when I click on this offer, that's where we start. So the offer is right here. It's an object. It's a variable that probably gets passed in somewhere into this method. Oh, it gets loaded right here. We loaded it at the beginning. There's an offer. So let's take a look at this offer object. I'm going to control click, and we can take a look at this offer object. There's a lot of code on the screen, but the takeaway here is this object represents a database table. Okay, hopefully you know what a database table is. If you don't, it's, this might be a little bit over your head. But hey, stick around, you might learn something. So the database table is called offer. And that's cool. I'm getting distracted. So it's someone's birthday. There's a bunch of cars driving by with balloons. And anyway, weird world we live in right now if you're watching this live. So there's an offer which represents a database table. And the offer has relationships. So relationships come from the fact that we have a relational database system. One-to-many is a type of relationship, many-to-many, one-to-one. Those are the three main types of relationships that you can have in a database. So an offer is related to courses, specifically many courses. So we can go in here and take a look at the course, okay? And then within the course, let me just mute my phone for a second here. Within a course, there's another relationship from a course to reviews. So we can go in and look at reviews. Again, I know there's a relationship because there's a set or a collection, to be more broad. There's a collection of Java objects that I have defined personally. So go into reviews. And then reviews have other relationships like user and course. How did I know that user and course are relationships? Well, like I said, these are objects that I have defined. The other objects are all built into Java. So these aren't really relationships. These are just properties that exist. These are columns that exist inside of the table. So the table has an ID, a star rating, which is an integer, the review text, the review title. Okay. So again, this is a review now. We're looking at a specific review. A review represents a database table called review, which literally represents a real person leaving a rating and review on a course that I or someone else has made. So they're going to give it a star rating from 1 to 5 stars. They're going to type in the text for the review. They're going to say, hey, this is the worst course I've ever taken, or hey, this is the best course I've ever taken, or whatever. The title of the review is just that. It's the title of the review. But then user and course here, these are objects that are not built into Java. These are ones that I have created. So that's how I know there's a relationship between this object, this database table, and another object, or rather another database table. Now, why have I been going and describing this to you? Well, because when we scroll down to look at the user, there's something specific here, actually for both of these, that stands out. And that is when we specified the relationship. This is JPA, Java Persistence Annotation Code. This is what we use to help map the database tables together in the world of Java. We did not specify, when I hit a comma here and hit control space, and then wait for my IDE to glitch out, we did not specify a fetch type. So if I double click on this, it says fetch, and you can say fetch equals, and then control space. And there are 2 fetch types, eager and lazy. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, the fetch type for the default fetch type for a one-to-many relationship, I think might be eager. It might be eager, which means that, well, no, now I'm questioning whether or not that's true, but let me just look at that, because I have to be able to describe why this problem is happening. So default fetch type one-to-many hibernate. Oops, that's not how you spell hibernate. Default fetch. So one-to-many Many. So the default fetch type for many to one is eager. So it's even more fine-grained than that. One to many is lazy, but many to one is eager. So that explains why this is happening. Many to one, by default, is eager fetching, which means that, let me explain what that means. It means that if I ever load a review, somehow, some way, somewhere, it's going to, by default, go and fetch all of the users that are associated, the user objects that are associated with that particular review. So what does that mean? That means that on this page, the home page, as you can see, there is information being displayed that relate to reviews, because you see the 98 ratings and the actual reviews and whatever. This means that I've loaded review data, which means that it's going to also fetch automatically all of the users associated with those ratings, as well as, now that I'm seeing this, all of the courses related to that as well. So that's going to cause this cascade of select statements. So the solution is, one way to solve this problem is to switch it from eager to be lazy, because by default it's going to be eager. So let's say, hey, don't eagerly load this stuff. Instead, I want you to lazily load this stuff. Okay, so Olaf was saying it's correct. It's eager. So I'm going to switch it to be lazy instead of eager. Now, you might think, oh, this is going to solve my problem. Now I'm all good. Well, this can introduce some quirks in your system. So now you need to test to make sure that whenever you are using ratings and reviews, that it's behaving the way you expect it to behave. And I know some things I can do to double check that. So just adding lazy into the fetch type here could solve our problem. So let's go back to the, it's rebooted the server. Let's go back to the home page, refresh. It shouldn't affect the home page. Everything still looks the same. There's still ratings and reviews here. Everything looks good. So let's go and clear console and go back to the screen and click on Coders Campus offer. So here's where the problem happened. When we click on Coders Campus, it took a long time to load. So we've hit our breakpoint. We'd previously put a breakpoint in here. So let's step through this breakpoint. Let's see if you're just joining us now, the problem we're trying to solve here is one of performance, and this code is what caused the performance problem. And we just put a solution in, hopefully, to solve that problem. So let's step through our code. Line by line, boom. The first select statement happens. That's perfectly fine. It's only one select statement happening. We're loading the offer. Cool. Next up was the payment processors. These had one select statement. That's fine. Again, not a big deal if you're just doing one select. Now, here's where the danger happened. When we loaded all of the reviews that were associated with the offer, and then courses, and then reviews. So we streamed, we grabbed the courses related to the offer, which in the case of the Coders Campus offer, there are 18 courses or something. I keep saying 18, but I don't know for sure. How many courses are there? Expand this. Yeah, 18. I nailed it. Zero base to 17 means 18. Anyway, I might have just skewed our results there because when I clicked on it, it loaded the courses. But anyway, let's see if I keep going through here. So it's still having to do, not nearly as many select statements are happening. If you saw this the first time, it literally took 12 seconds to go through all the different select statements. So that's actually a much better result, but there's still some tomfoolery going on here. And it looks like it's related to courses and loading courses, but anyway. Already that looks much better. Okay, so now we can do a quick check to see if it's faster, right? And from what I saw right there, it's kind of a little bit faster. It wasn't a lot faster. If I disable the breakpoints and just refresh this page and count, because again, I got to 12 before counting. That's how long it took. So let me hit refresh and count. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 9.5 seconds there, a little bit of an improvement. So there's still room to improve. We helped things, but still room to improve. So let's take a look at all the rest of this. There's still a lot more select statements in the console, right? Let me scroll down here, scroll. There's a ton of select statements. So let's keep going. We've sort of helped to reduce the number of select statements by adding the lazy fetch type explicitly, adding the lazy fetch type for the many to one side of the relationship. So let's keep going. Let's put a breakpoint here now and enable the breakpoints again, and keep going and see where else we are hitting problems with our errant select statements. Okay, so clearing the log, let's step through one by one. See what if that has anything. No, that doesn't do anything. Keep going. Okay, here's another bad one. I'm waiting. I hit F6 and I'm still waiting. So this is another bad one. Look at how bad. So that's a lot of time we just spent on that one step through. It's another problem. So that's definitely a problem. Let me clear the console and see if there's another obvious one here. No. See if there's any other obvious ones. Let me step through the code. Oh my God, there's a label here. This is bad code, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I don't think I wrote this code. Yeah, this is someone else that wrote this code. Sorry, if you're the one who wrote this code and you're watching, I'm pooping on your code, and that's okay. They were a bit of a junior level developer that I had help me out with this, and it's not the greatest code. It works. It works. And if you've ever been through my boot camp before, you'll get these personalized code reviews that I do, where the most important thing is that it works, but the second most important thing is that it's readable and follows good coding conventions. That's where I would have torn this code apart, but anyway. Okay, so there's a few issues with this code, but if I were to, there's nothing. We'll see. We'll get there when we get there. So let's focus on what we identified before, which was this guy right here as being a problem. James asked, what IDE is this? Is this an IDE to optimize for Spring? Yes. So this is called Spring Tool Suite. You can go to spring.io/tools or tool or tools, and you can download it. This is a bit more of an outdated version. I haven't updated it in a long time. I think the newer version probably looks slightly different, but yeah, it allows you to do some neat things with Spring and analyzing your code and giving graphs and charts, and you can do a bunch of checks. I should be using them for this part because it's great for performance, analyzing performance and whatnot. So I probably could be doing an even better job by leveraging those tools. But a lot of people don't use this browser, so it doesn't really apply to a broad set of people. So we'll just do it the old-fashioned way, which is stepping through line by line to see where the wait happens, like where the biggest wait time is, which was here on line 201. So on line 201, we do a get num lessons from offer. So we're calculating the number of lessons from the offer. And I assume that's because on the screen, I stopped the server. On the screen, it probably says how many lessons there are or something in the offer, obviously. So let's see what this does. Let's go ahead and open it. So this is doing an offer. It gets the courses, it streams those, it gets the sections, and then streams those and gets the lessons, and then finds out how many lessons there are and sums it up. So most likely there's a bunch of eager fetching. Well, this is probably lazy. Anyway, we'll see. Let's have a look. So offer to courses, we've already taken a look at that. I think that one is not terrible. So if we look at the mapping between course and offer, which is down here, yeah, the fetch type is lazy, but that's not necessarily going to fix your problem, I should say. We'll get into that. It helped my problem before, but it might not necessarily fix the entire thing. But let's keep going. So it goes from offer to course to sections, because for my courses, you can section up a bunch of lessons into sections. So a course has sections. Let me see, where are the sections? Sections are here. Let me look at the relationship mapping. Lazy, okay. Let me go into section object. So here's a section object, has lessons. So the lessons are also mapped to be lazy. And the lesson back to section, I assume we put lazy as well. wherever that is. Yeah, lazy. So we have lazy fetching going on here. So then you might be saying, well, what the heck, Trevor? Why is it still slow? Well, it's slow because we're actually asking for it all. At this point, we're saying, get me all this information. Get me all the sections related to a course. Get me all the lessons related to each section. Count them up and blah, 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 blah. So it has to go and actually do all this fetching. We're asking for it, so it has to do it, right? So how do you fix that? Well, to fix that, we do something like we did in the previous video, which is to modify our SQL statement, that the initial SQL statement that was used to load the offer, okay? Or we can introduce another SQL statement, and for every single offer we can do this. But we'll see. I think for this one, we can get away with just putting it onto the original offer. So let me go into, where was this? Course controller? Yes. So this offer, how do we load this original offer? How did this get loaded in? It was loaded in right here. This is where we initialize the variable. It was offer repository.find by URL. So this was the SQL statement that was used to load up the offer, which is part of our offer repository, which is right here, which is just a regular old run-of-the-mill select statement that is built using JPA. We don't have an actual query like this one above, for example, or this one below. When we don't have a query specified explicitly here, it does this by default. It will say select star from, and because we're inside of an offer repository, we're telling it right here which table to use. This is the offer table. So it knows to do select star from the offer table. And then because we used a method name called find by URL, it's going to say where URL equals, and then we're passing in as a parameter the name that we're selecting by. So it's going to select by offer name. Okay, so we didn't actually have to type in any SQL here. It did it for us. This is what it will literally translate into. Select star from offer where URL equals the offer name. Nice to hear the presentation. Cool. Nice to have you listening to the presentation. TV Link, good name. So that's what's happening here. But what we can do here is we can tweak this a little bit, because all this is doing is literally doing select star from offer where URL equals offer name. This is not going to also fetch all the courses that relate to the offer. It's also not going to fetch all of the sections that relate to a course. It's also not going to fetch all the lessons that belong to the sections, etc., etc. So in other words, it's going to have to lazily load those now that I'm asking for them later on, which is where we take the performance hit. So there's a delicate ballet here that we need to decide, do we want to do lazy fetching or eager fetching? In other words, do we want to use the benefits of lazy fetching in that it's not going to load all the stuff unless we ask for it, but then if we do ask for it, then we need to pay the penalty of having to load it later like that. So there's a way to do this better. There's a better way to do this if you know going into it that you are going to be needing to load those other things. So the better way to do it is like we did in the previous lesson, which I think was up here. You do a bunch of join fetches. Join fetch means go and get the stuff that I know we're going to need when we do this select statement, right? So we have to build out and tell it exactly what we need to grab. So the first step, like I did yesterday, was let me look at this and see where else uses this. Because if I change this here, other methods could be calling this one. So although I know it's being called from our course controller, wherever we were pointing, where else is calling this? Because we're going to affect other places too. So the trick to do that in the Spring or the Eclipse IDE, which also works for Spring, highlight the method, Control-Shift-G. We'll search all the references for this particular guy. Oh, more questions coming in. I mean, I have never seen a better teacher than you. Thank you. I obviously always appreciate positive feedback. I've heard that a lot. I've heard a lot of people like my teaching, so happy to be of service. James says, so I create a new view model for this. I'm interested in what you'll do. Would I create a new view model? No, I don't think so. a new view would mean a new HTML page altogether. So it's not necessarily that we need to create a new HTML page. It's just that the current HTML page that we're using, which is the, I don't know if I have it up and running. No, it's not showing right now. The one with the offer that shows all the courses within the offer and all the reviews and so on and so forth, that view needs to stay the same. That HTML page needs to stay the same. The problem is the way we're populating the model. The way we populate the model is inefficient. We're doing all these extra select statements that we don't need to be doing. Although lazy loading is great, it does tend to improve performance overall. The downside is when you do need to actually make use of the lazy fetching part of lazy fetching, it can often do it in a dumb way. And that's what we see. We see a huge output of select statements in our console, and that's because it doesn't know any better way to do it than the stupid way of doing it, which is the crazy inefficient way. It doesn't always do that, but in this case, we need to help it, is what we need to do. So since we're only loading stuff from offer, we need to say, hey, or rather, sorry, first we check and see where this is being called from, and it's only being called from one place. When I did my Control-Shift-G, it output this one method, so we know it's only being called from here. This is the only place that calls this method. So we can change it. This is where the problem is, or this is where we can help solve the problem. It's only being called by this one place. So if we change this find by URL code, it's only going to be affecting that one place. So we're good. We can change it. How do we change it? We need to make a custom query, unfortunately. We can't leverage the beautiful built-in JPA functionality of the method naming. 1 second, my wife is texting me. So, query, we define a custom query. So how do we do this? We say select. We can kind of start doing the same thing we did before. Actually, we might even just do the identical way. Almost the identical thing that we did before. So let me try just to shortcut this whole process, because my wife needs my help right now. Copy paste didn't work. There we go. Sometimes IDEs try to be more clever than they need to be and cause more issues. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is find by URL. We're going to do something similar to this. We're going to grab an offer, fetch all the courses and reviews that relate to that offer. I don't think we need to grab the authority. We might need to. Well, we'll see. But then, in the previous select statement from above, we did a where clause where active equals true. Well, we don't want to do that where clause. What we do want to do is, again, this one, where URL equals the offer name that's being passed in. Okay? Oh, geez. Bunch more messages. I would like to write a service for this, not write the query by hand. The problem is I did have this as a service, and that was in my mapping where I mapped, where was it? Here. This is part of the service, the course service, right? So the course service did this streaming to get the sum of all the lessons, because you want to count the number of lessons for the offer, hence the name of the method. This is what led to the problem. So we need to tweak. We either need to introduce a new URL, a new query here, but it actually makes more sense to do it on the original select statement here. Add query is faster than just using JPA. Add query allows you to do a custom query, which is what we want to do. I'm really confused about where to use lazy versus JSON ignore. Those are two different concepts. JSON ignore is, something very different. What you were talking about is when to use lazy versus eager. And I guess I didn't do a great job talking about that, but unfortunately I'm being summoned. So I need to wrap this up, unfortunately. So what I want to do here is, for this query, I need to say where, because we need to add that where clause, because we were previously finding by URL. So we want to say where offer dot, oh shoot, what is it? Dot URL? Let's see. What is the property that this guy has for URL? Is it checkout URL? I don't think so. Image URL. Oh, just URL. Okay, I think that's the one. Where o.url equals, and then we use this syntax here, the colon offer name. So the colon says, hey, we're about to put a variable name in here. Here's our variable name, which is right here. It has to match the variable name of the what's this called? The parameter for the find by URL method. So let's try this out. I'm going to save this and reboot my server in debug mode. And hopefully this will fix our problem. Oh, thank you, Olaf, for helping in the comments and explaining differences between JSON ignore and lazy fetching. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this mostly resolves our problem. Let's go back to, where's our breakpoint? Here, is this? No, this is not where the, so this is where the problem was right here. So there will be some select statements going into this. When we hit here, oops. What did I do? Name for parameter binding must not be, oh, that's right, at param. So I'm using a earlier version of whatever here that I'm using, and I think it requires you to, inside of your repositories, offer repository? Yeah, so because I said string offer name here, you need to actually annotate it with at param and give the name offer name that matches the parameter. It's a quirk of whatever version I'm using. It's an older version. In newer versions of, I think, Hibernate, I think, or I don't remember where this is parameter comes from Spring Data. Oh, so from Spring Data JPA. So a technology that Spring offers. A more recent one, it figures this out for you. But anyway, little quirks here and there and everywhere. All right. So let's clear the console. And hopefully now, cross your fingers, because we did the more powerful select statement for the original offer itself way up here, when it did this find by URL, it loaded everything in a much smarter way with a lot fewer selects into the offer object. So hopefully now in our line of code here on 201, when I hit F6 to step over, it does not have to do a bunch of SQL selects. So let's do F6. It's still doing a few. It's still doing a few. So it's loading up lessons. Did I forget lessons? Oh, yes, I did. Of course. Yes. Duh. So, I did not... Where'd it go? Here. I loaded up courses, reviews, and users, but I did not go further down the line and load the whatchamacallit, course, because C here, C right here is the alias that represents the courses. Courses have sections, so C dot, I think sections is the name of the variable. Let me go into the course object and just prove that that's, yeah, so this is sections is the name that I use, the variable name, the instance variable name. So C dot sections, we'll call this S. Have we used S? We'll just call it section. No, we'll call it S because I'm lazy. We haven't used that before. No. So we get the sections, and also we want to left join fetch the section, what's lessons. So a section has lessons. We'll call that L. Again, make sure there's no conflicting alias already that I've used for L. So a section, which is right here, has lessons is the instance variable name. So that's why I say S for section dot lessons. So now we're going to join and fetch the sections and the lessons when we fetch the offer by URL. So hopefully that'll get rid of all these select statements. I'm going to save and refresh the server. Check my comments and see if there's more that have come up. Join fetch, is that SQL agnostic? It aims to be. So this is not writing this code here. This is not SQL. This is something called JPQL, Java Persistence Querying Language. Yes, so it comes with the Java Persistence API. So, oh, apparently it loaded up the page. Okay. So, no, this is not SQL. It is SQL agnostic. I believe it should be. So as long as JPA and Spring Data JPA works with the MariaDB or Postgres, etc., then it'll work. I'm floating, but very interested in gaining a skill at the end of the presentation. Cool. So, cross our fingers. Moment of truth. We'll F6. Nice. No SQL statements. So that means that we properly loaded everything that we knew that we wanted in that one SQL statement way up here. Okay? So it was going to load it anyway. We knew it was going to load it anyway. We saw it loading it all, but it was just doing it in a dumb way. So although the SQL statement does not look very nice, it should work, and it will work much faster. Okay? Now, when we hit play and go through the rest of the stuff, there are still more SQL statements. And like I said, that code is it's going to be the same concept that we apply here. Yeah, that we will need to apply, but I don't have time to do that right now. So let's go in here, and now remember, let me disable my breakpoints. Remember, I'm going to refresh this page. It took 12 seconds to load this page before. 12 seconds. So let's refresh and let's count how many seconds it now takes to load. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 3/4 seconds. So we shaved off almost 75%. Is that right? 4 to 12? No, that's 66% of the time it took to load the page. And there's still more improvements that we can make, right? We know there's more select statements that happen down here in this code, but this is far more complex code that I don't want to dive into right now. So yeah, there you go. We've helped improve the performance by about 66-ish%. Still takes a while to load, but we've definitely improved the performance. So as in terms of other offers only have like one course associated with them. So for example, clicking on this one, it's like immediate. It immediately comes up. So for other offers that aren't as course heavy, that don't have as many courses and reviews, it is lightning fast, right? You click on it, boom, it loads. So much faster. So overall, we have definitely helped improve the performance significantly. But yeah, there's extra work to do. So yeah, thanks so much, guys, for sticking with me through this very long recording. Happy to have you here. And hey, if you are, timely in watching this, sometime in the May 2020 to early June 2020 timeframe, you might also be interested in the bootcamp that I'm putting on. I'm putting on a full stack Java bootcamp where you learn all of the skills that you would need to make and build Java web applications from scratch. And not just that, but leverage those skills for either starting a career or improving upon your existing career as a programmer. I'm so confident in this that if you do go through the bootcamp and graduate, I guarantee you a job offer. I guarantee you that you're going to get a job offer in your hand. There's a whole bunch of things that I need to do and work my butt off to make that happen for you, which is why I can guarantee it. But there's a lot of work that goes into that job offer guarantee. So if you're looking to get a job as a coder, if this is interesting to you and you have failed to get to the point where you can, ace interviews and have the skill set that you need to pass interviews and get a job, that's what the bootcamp is for. It's long. It's 6 months. It is very, very hands-on. There's Slack channels. You get direct access to me via Slack. There are live calls every week, so you can talk to me one-on-one, kind of like this, but actually talk to me in person, quote-unquote, in person, one-on-one. You get code reviews, so I actually look at your code and go through and personally review it and give you my feedback on it, and we can iterate on the code so you don't pick up any bad habits. There's tons and tons of tutorials. There's, there's 24 weeks of tutorials. It's very, very, very intensive. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, even if it's after June 2020, you should be able to go to Coders Campus, Coders with an S, campus.com/bootcamp. If this works, hopefully it should work. coderscampus.com/bootcamp. Yeah, and you can learn more about the bootcamp. I have a lot of information about it, some previous students and what they had to say about it, the full curriculum, everything you need to know about the bootcamp. So I'd highly recommend, if this is something that you are serious about, you want to be a coder, you want to learn this stuff, you want to get a job, or you want to improve on your current job and gain more confidence, this is what I do. I've been teaching this stuff for over 8 years now. I've been a programmer professionally working for over 13 years. So It's not one of those things where I just graduated and now I'm turning around and teaching it. No, I've done this stuff. I've eat, sleep, breathe, drink, whatever, code for the past 13 years professionally. And I've literally been coding since I was 10 years old. I'm 36, 37 now. So it's been a while. So yeah, this ain't your typical noob teaching you this stuff. So it's a cool boot camp. I've had lots of great results from the students in terms of them loving it and going through. I'm at the stage now of the November 2019 boot camp of placing them in jobs. So that's starting the process now. So yeah, if you have questions, thoughts, you can leave a comment. You can email me via this page if you like. I'm here for you. And if not, then hey, join the next live stream. I love doing this stuff. I love teaching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cool? So take care of yourselves, guys. I got to go help my wife now with my kid, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.